One of my favorite phones from late last year, but with the latest Snapdragon 8 Gen 2, is the Vivo X90 Pro Plus. But we've now got this, the global release, and they did only bring us this, unfortunately, which is the Vivo X90 Pro, so not the Pro Plus model. Because I've been using the Pro Plus, I'm in a good position here to give you a bit of a comparison between these devices and my review of the X90 Pro. So it still is quite a good flagship when you take a look at the spec sheet. There's a lot on offer, even though the Pro Plus, yes, has a periscopic camera, slightly better ultra-wide, slightly better fingerprint reader, slightly better screen. We still get the X989 with this model here, which is that 1-inch sensor from Sony with an f1.8 aperture and Zeiss optics. It has 120 watt charging, a 120 hertz screen, and it runs Android 13 with FuntouchOS 13. So I'll be going through some of the differences between these two models and give you my overall thoughts as a Vivo X90 Pro Plus user on just how is the lesser model here, the X90 Pro. So included with the phone, there is a SIM tray tool, bit of paperwork, which is the important information and warranty card, a TPU clear style case there that does offer very good protection, all sides, including the buttons. 120 watt charger, very quick. It fully charges the phone in just under 30 minutes. And then a Type-C to Type-C cable. Now the build and the design is pretty much identical just at first glance compared to the X90 Pro Plus version, which I've been using now since it came out and since I've had it. But unfortunately, this is a Chinese only release. And you'll probably hear me talking about it a lot in this video, that it is unfortunate. I really think that the global version, we should have got maybe the X90, but also the X90 Pro Plus, as you'll see later on. There's a lot of differences between them. So this one has a superior screen, and what we have with the X90 Pro is a slight downgrade with the screen. So the resolution is 1260p. It's not like the Quad HD that we do get with this model here, the Pro Plus. Its brightness, well, 1300 nits, and I'll get onto the screen a little bit more in detail too as well with that. AMOLED too, and they basically got an identical build when you take a look at them. They just look the same on the back here, and then again, the cameras. So the good thing is they've still got the Zeiss optics, so they're using those plastic-sized lenses in their T-Star coating for anti-glare, so that's great. Now, you see the differences here. We've got the periscopic camera with the X90 Pro Plus, and we don't have it here with this one. So we've still got that 1-inch sensor, the X989, very good sensor too, by the way, f1.8 aperture. We still have the 2x optical camera, which is, I believe it's that one right there. And we are missing out on the ultra-wide, the 16 megapixel one that you get with this model again. So it's a bit of a downgrade in the ultra-wide department. You don't really notice it too much. It's a 12 megapixel unit, still very good. So those are the differences there. And with these two here, this model here, the Chinese only one, again, does shoot 8K 30 frames per second. Whereas with the Dimensity, the 9200 here, we only get 24 frames per second with 8K video. But it has that fake leather on the back of both of them. It does feel very good, really solid. We've got the dual tone LED flashes right here. Even though it looks like it's 3, I believe it's still only 2 little LED flashes within there. And that little metal bar along the back there that does state extreme imagination on both of them. So the frame around the outside, that's all metal, with the power buttons are all in the same location, and the volume up and down, which is of course on the right hand side. So curved back to it, curved glass with the front, and the same 32 megapixel camera that we have on both of them, our front facing camera with that cutout. Now down below here, it's exactly the same again. All right, so we got the Type-C port that does support video out, USB 3.2, microphones, loudspeaker, antenna line, for some reason it is in a different place there, so that's one tiny little difference. And then we do have our SIM trays there that do take nano SIMs. There's no micro SD card support with both of these phones here. And then along the top, it is the same antenna lines in the same position right there. We've got an IR transmitter, and we do have our secondary mic for noise cancellation and voice calls. And it's also used for the stereo with our video. There's a microphone on the back too that you'll notice, okay, on both of them. They haven't skipped, at least on that. There's still a mic here with this, and we do have laser assist autofocus on both of them. So now with the X90 Pro, this screen, as I said, is a bit of a downgrade compared to the Pro Plus version, but it's a good screen. It's not bad at all. Maximum brightness is 1300 nits, and it is viewable. You can make out and send messages in direct sunlight, which is what you want. Now, being an AMOLED, the blacks, of course, are very deep. good looking colors, and you've got plenty of options which I'll get into shortly when it comes to the screen and just tweaking it to your own personal preference there with it. What I don't particularly like about it, and I've mentioned this with other phones too, is the curvature of the screen means that yes, in hand it feels a little bit better and probably is actually slightly better for your gestures when you're swiping from the sides, but you do get the colors kind of shift out a little bit just on those edges. And this is why I'm a person, I don't know about you, but I do prefer flat displays. But it is a great screen that they've gone with in here. And even though, yes, I've said it, it's a bit of a downgrade compared to the X90 Pro Plus version, most people would not actually be able to notice the difference. Because this model here, it peaks out around about 300 nits brighter, and of course it does have that 1440p or QHD plus resolution to it. So slightly sharper, but at normal viewing distances, honestly, you are not really seeing that much of a difference between both of these screens. So for our screen, these are the settings that we do get with it. So you've got your dark theme, eye protection, which is the blue light filter, the screen colors. You're able to tweak those a lot. They've even got a Zeiss natural color setting in there, which is quite good. Now, this is the one I prefer, but I've just kept it on standard for this video, which is the default setting, and you can adjust the white balance right here. So good options that you see typically with all phones. Now, you've got your font size and your screen size, so you can scale that. Now, the standard DPI on standard, that is, I have noticed there's slightly smaller the scaling compared to, again, the Pro Plus model. But it could be a bit of a difference between having, of course, Origin OS, which is on the Chinese version, and then the locally released global version. This, of course, has FuntouchOS, and that's just a slight difference between them. There are quite a few actual differences between them, but I won't go into that because everyone's going to have the global version, so it's no really point for me to do that. So you've got status bar, your screen resolution options. So by default, they keep it on actually just the Full HD Plus resolution, and you kind of notice a bit of a difference to it. I noticed that, yes, that when it's the high resolution, it is looking a little sharper, and you probably just picked that up on video too. It's a little more noticeable than some other models that offer higher resolutions, but it's just a shame it's not 1440p with this one. But that was probably why they would get, at least in the Chinese region, that is, to get you to go for the more expensive model. Visual enhancement, something that I would actually never really touch because I just find it to be a little bit artificial normally, that kind of boosting that they do. And there's a few other settings which are pretty typical. So refresh rate, there's either 60 or 120, and it would be nice if there was a 90 Hz option for that perfect blend that I often talk about between the fluidity and then the battery saving. So 90 is still good, and I still actually don't mind using 90 at all, but I've forced it to 120 because, hey, why not? It is a phone that has 120 Hz. That's what you pay for, but if you need to save on battery life, then by all means use the 60 Hz refresh rate. The other area for me, which the X90 Pro Plus really excels, is the fingerprint reader, because this one is an ultrasonic and it's got a huge area and it just works. It's the best I've ever used in a phone, period. It's so good. What about then X90 Pro? So this fingerprint reader, it's good. I don't find it to be amazing, as you just see there. It missed one opportunity to scan my finger, and I don't know why that happened. But I'm not going to edit that out. I'll keep that in. I'll do that one more time because it might have actually been my fault. There we go. That was a little bit better. It's normally really good, but I will say occasionally it doesn't work. So this is like a 9, sometimes 8 out of 10 times working fingerprint reader, whereas I'll demonstrate the optical and then, of course, the ultrasonic right here, that it's just every single time without fault, and it just works so well. Now, Vivo's global firmware is, of course, FunTouch. Now, FunTouch, I don't find to be an amazing launcher. I wouldn't say it's a bad launcher either. It is very fast. It is fluid. And I haven't seen or noticed any bugs in my time using it now, which is great. And performance is just top. Now, it offers a lot of features. There's tweaks and things. And I will say this, that it's better than certainly MIUI. I think it's way better than MIUI. That's often riddled with bugs, and the performance can sometimes lag. Don't see it here. So I said before that the difference is really between FunTouch and then Origin OS, which is the Chinese model. I know I shouldn't be talking about it. It's basically the scaling. You can see how the icons look a little bit bigger here, and there's a few other differences. But it's so much better than, I believe, Origin OS, because you don't have all of the annoying Chinese apps. You sometimes have a few things that when you scroll down, you get some notifications coming through from the bloatware, the Chinese apps. So you're going to have none of those problems, of course, now with the global firmware version here. So performance is top. What it offers, features, all good. And I don't mind it. I think it's a decent launcher, and I think most people will be very happy with it. So I've got the 12 gigabytes of RAM in 256 gigabytes of UFS 4.0 storage with this model, and really just no lags. It's great. But on the topic of bloatware, yes, there is a bit, as you can see, quite a bit. So we've got hot apps, hot games that you have to go through the launcher settings just to disable that. So that's one way to get rid of it pretty quick. And then you can see we've got Facebook, TikTok, Spotify, and various different other apps that are definitely, I would classify those as bloatware. So there's a few there. Then you've got Vivo's own applications. So once you sort that out, you really only just have then the Vivo apps, and it's not too bad. But I wish, again, like most brands out there now, that they would just tone down a little bit on the amount of bloatware that they just pre-install on these phones. It's getting a little bit out of control, but it's still here a lot better than what Xiaomi's been doing. Realme have been creeping up a little bit too with the amount of bloatware, but I still wish they would tone it down. So this is the firmware. There is no updates. I'm on the latest. If you're wondering what I'm reviewing it with, well, that's the firmware right there. And as mentioned, I haven't experienced any major bugs, issues, glitches, or anything like that. It does seem to be pretty good. Speaking of performance, now I will bring up again that other model here, which of course is the Chinese model, just to show you the performance difference between Dimensity's top chipset, which is the Dimensity 9200, versus the Snapdragon 8 Gen 2. And you can see, look at this, they are, wow, almost identical. So it's just a bit faster here with the X90 Pro Plus model with that Qualcomm chip versus the MediaTek. So MediaTek, they're really stepping up, and you can see thermals, not much in it there either. Well, this went up 8 degrees versus 7.3, and the battery loss was, well, just a 1% difference, 5%, then 6%. And actually, based on that benchmark, it does reflect what I am seeing, that the Snapdragon does seem to be a little bit more efficient when you're using it, but with fixed battery tests, as you'll see later, it actually works out to be slightly better, which kind of doesn't really make sense. So I just guess it just depends on the task that it's running. Now, when it comes to our stress tests, I did run the 3D Mark Extreme stress test. It goes for 20 minutes, loops 20 times. It's super demanding. So the best score was the Qualcomm here. And you can see that it dropped, well, just over 7%. It's almost about 8%. It throttled down the performance, which is very good. And you'll see then with the MediaTek that it throttled quite a bit more, an extra almost 10% more throttling. So that's quite a big difference there. Almost about 18% performance dip down after that 20 minutes. You can see the high scores and then the low scores. There is a bit of a difference. So with that low score, almost about 400 points there. Now, when you take a look at the thermals, there's not much of a difference in it at all. We're looking at a maximum of 52 degrees C, the chipset, versus 54 with the Dimensity 9200. And I believe, I could be wrong on this one, that the cooling, the thermal cooling that it has in there, the vapor chambers and everything, I believe they are the same on both of these models here. So it's a good test of these chipsets and how they throttle handling the exact same load. Then the battery life benchmark that I do like to run because it is a fixed test. I know it's not realistic. Many people keep reminding me of that, and I've never said it has been realistic, but because it's a fixed test, it's a good way to gauge, having the same calibrated brightness on both of these, which one is the best on the battery. Now, the thing is here, with this test that, yes, is not realistic, you can see there's about an hour difference. Well, it's actually an hour and 20 minutes there. That it gets more on the MediaTek powered device. Now, in real life, I'm seeing about the same kind of battery life that you're looking around 7.5 hours on screen time. And I don't really think you can get 8. It's a little bit unrealistic at, of course, the higher resolutions. Now, this was run at the higher resolution. This was running at its highest resolution. So it's not a fair test, really, because we're looking at then 1440p versus that 60p. So it's a lower resolution, less demanding for it. And the battery capacity in this one is 4,870 amp hours. So it's a decent size. I wish it was that, 5,000 milliamp hours would be good, a good battery life out of it. Now, the charging time, blazing quick. It is just 28 minutes at the 120 watts to just fully charge it. So that's from 4% to 99 here. Well, it was actually 100, as you can see at the top. Really good. No one's going to be complaining about that speed. It is blazing fast there. It's a great charging speeds from it. You do have the wireless charging, which is 50 watts wireless. So it is a lot less, below half. And you're looking at, to fully charge it wirelessly, just under an hour, which is really still good So it does support widevine level 1. We have, you can see support here for HDR10 Plus, HDR10, and your Netflix, Amazon Prime Video will be in full HD, which is good. And then Camera 2 API support is just full, not level 3, but full still pretty good on all of those cameras if you wanted to try and hunt around and find, say, a Gcam port or use open camera if you're one of those guys that likes to do that. Then the gaming performance. So how much of a difference is there with the Dimensity 9200 versus the Snapdragon 8 Gen 2? Well, there's a bit. It's pretty much exactly what we saw with the 3D Mark scores, that after a while I noticed you get a little more throttling here with the Dimensity 9200 now than of course you do with this one. It's not really that noticeable. The performance is still excellent. This is top settings here with Genshin Impact, and I really don't see any lags at all. It's just occasionally a few more little frame dips and things will take place. Now you can run this, which is the boost mode, which is going to help get rid of any of that little choppiness or the occasional frame dip. But the trade-off is it will get a little warmer. And I have noticed it does get quite hot around the frame, especially if you game for like an hour. The frame starts to get up to around 47, 48 degrees Celsius, which is getting pretty toasty there. And it's similar to what we do see with the thermals. Well, I've been seeing here too with the Snapdragon Gen 2, 8 Gen 2 version, which is the Plus model. But overall, good gaming, great gaming performance. Every single game that's out there will have decent playable frame rates, even with this Dimensity 9200, so you don't need to worry about that if you're a gamer. It's still really good. Moving over to the cameras with the Vivo X90 Pro. So this is the front-facing camera. Video, you can shoot 1080p, 30, 60, that's it. Unfortunately, there is no 4K, so this is where Vivo is falling behind the competition, because other flagships will have, with their front-facing cameras, autofocus, that'll have 4K 30, 4K 60, and we just don't get it with the Vivo, unfortunately. Now, the image stabilization, you actually have to turn on by default. I'm not too sure if I've got it on at the moment, but they have what is called like a face steady mode too, which really locks onto your face and keeps it even steadier than what you are seeing now. Now, the audio bit rate is 256 kilobits per second, and I'll just jog ahead here. The stabilization is okay. It isn't the best I've seen, but not bad quality for 1080p. I just really wish that Vivo would add a 4K option with this front-facing camera. Rear video with our main 1-inch sensor, the X90. So this stabilization is both optical and electronic, and it looks very similar to the X90 Pro Plus. You're not really missing out on too much. So I can apply a little bit of digital zoom, and this is at the moment now 2 times. Okay, just gone over to the 2 times. You would have seen it swapped over to our 2 times camera, and that has 2 times optical zoom. And it does have optical image stabilization, so it looks really quite good. So it's 4K 30 at the moment. You can shoot 4K 60, 8K, but only at 24 frames per second, which I do find to be a little choppy. That's 3.5 times digital zoom, and there is 4. Honestly, I would not really go myself over that, because as you'll see, the more I start to zoom in, it starts to get quite kind of blocky and pixelated. That's 5 times now, and that really is it for me. So just zoom right back, to bring that right back to the 1 times main camera, and then over now to our ultra wide. So that's 0.6 times zoom. Stability again is, well, just electronic with the ultra wide, 12 megapixels. Just to jog ahead, testing out that stabilization. And over to our camera. So first the selfie shots. I like this shot here. I think it's good background blur. However, look at this daytime shot. Take a look at the left side of my head. It's a little bit overexposed, so a little hit and miss, certainly with the selfies and even the portraits. This shot here of my daughter, I do like it, but just the stitching on it makes it almost look like a cutout that's being cut and pasted onto just a blurred background. I think it's a little too aggressive. The stitching there and around her hair doesn't look amazing either, but it takes a good shot. I still think it's a pleasant looking photo. Skin comes out nice as well. Ultra wide shots, they can look okay, as you can see from this example, pretty good. But then this shot here with the sun in front of me, the HDR I feel was struggling a little bit. Some of the blacks, the details there, a bit crushed, a little bit too contrasty. So again, a bit up and down. The 1-inch sensor, probably one of my favorites, has huge potential. So the shot of this flower here, colors are pretty good. This is using the Zeiss natural color mode. And look at that background blur, very good. That's natural. I'm not using a portrait mode with artificial background blur. No, that's all coming from the lens. And what I do have a bit of a complaint with is bright colors, and sometimes getting that focus is very difficult. So this is just a random photo I took here of some flowers, and notice that it's just a little bit too oversaturated, feels overdone, focus is kind of all over the place too. Now I did tap to focus on those flowers, and it's quite hit and miss, but it's just the clipping, the oversaturation here that I'm not particularly fond of. This is another perfect example of exactly what I'm talking about here. Not a good photo at all, just clipping, oversaturated, and it did not handle this well. So if you take a lot of photos of bright flowers and things, at this current point where it is with the firmware, it's just not there. Zoom photos do come out better than I expected. Remember, we're missing the 3.5 times periscopic camera, but this shot here of the cat, which now is at about 5 times zoom, so that's the 2 times optical, plus then the rest digital, actually doesn't look too bad, which did surprise me. Macro photos, plenty of details captured, but when you look at this, it's just a tad overexposed, and that's just using all default settings here. Low light performance, well, it's got potential. They're looking pretty good, some of these shots, but I do see some artifacts, a little bit of noise, and it's not bad. This 1-inch sensor, don't get me wrong, has got a huge amount of potential. It just feels at the moment the best way to describe these cameras as quite hit and miss. Clearly some optimization is needed from Vivo. Okay, so the main camera is the same on both versions. The 50 megapixel IMX989, it does have the Zeiss optics. There are some slight differences, but the key thing is with the cameras is the optical zoom camera you do get with the Pro Plus model, which of course is missing with the X90 Pro. So if you wanted that greater zoom camera, then unfortunately, of course, we don't have it with this model. The step down in the ultra wide isn't really that noticeable at all. Neither really is the screen. Okay, the screen has a slightly lower resolution, 1440p. This one has 1260p. And then the chipset, performance-wise, identical, and everything you do, it feels just as fast. Benchmarks, it's just as fast, basically the same. However, long kind of stressful loads like gaming and a game like Genshin Impact, you do notice then after about 30 minutes that yes, this model here with the MediaTek is throttling a little bit more, but not by a huge margin. It's not enough reason for, I would say, to go out and have to get the X90 Pro Plus model, because that's the import version. It runs Origin OS, which is different. It's not a global firmware. There's a lot of Chinese stuff on there, which is very annoying. Of course, you don't get it with this here. So overall, the X90 Pro is, yes, a step down, but it's still an excellent phone, and I think most people are going to be very happy with it. You get that excellent main camera. The fingerprint reader, for me, is probably one of the other things that I really wish it had, the ultrasonic fingerprint reader that the X90 Pro Plus has, which, as I showed you, is fantastic. Sadly, not here with this one, but great phone, the X90 Pro from Vivo.